Hi, I'm Adam Pitts with the Gwinnett County Public Library. I'm going to be showing you some lesser-known genealogy resources in this video that many of you may not be aware of. If you're like myself and you've started to research your own family tree, you've probably used some of the more popular genealogy sites like Ancestry.com and FamilySearch. And those are an excellent way to get started, but there are some other great resources that can help you learn more about your ancestors and give you a more complete picture of what their lives were like, which is one of the things I find most satisfying about researching family history. One of my favorite genealogy websites is called FindAGrave, which is a database of cemetery records as its name implies. FindAGrave is actually owned by Ancestry.com, but it doesn't require a subscription to use. It's totally free. So to demo how this works, I'll use an example. And you'll want to enter as much information about the ancestor as you know. And once you've done that, click the search button below. Okay, and that's going to bring up a results list. Each of these results will link to a memorial page, and to show you what one of those looks like, I'll use the first example on the list. So here we are in a memorial page, and you'll see that it includes things like this individual's date of birth and death, as well as the locations, and also the burial location. Now, oftentimes there will also be a photo of the individual and of the headstone, although in this case it looks like it's just a scan of a family record of some sort. We can scroll down just a little bit and see some biographical information, and then underneath that some other family members are listed. Each of these links to their memorial pages, so I'll just click on one of those to show you. And what's nice about this is you can easily navigate and trace the family tree this way. Now, how much information about a particular person is on FindAGrave depends on whether or not somebody has added it. All information on FindAGrave is user added, meaning that anyone can add a memorial or photos. And that's also something to keep in mind. That opens the potential for inaccurate information, but that's really the case for most, if not all, genealogy websites. So that said, if you don't see a memorial for a particular ancestor who you have information about, you can easily create a FindAGrave account for free and add a memorial. Another nice thing about creating an account is that you can contact other FindAGrave users to compare notes and share information. So I really think it's a nice resource and I highly recommend it. The next thing I want to show you are the Sanborn fire insurance maps, which were done during the last half of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century. And they were done to document structures like buildings, commercial properties, residences in towns and cities for fire insurance purposes. So if your ancestor lived in a town or city, this will work. If they were in a rural area, it won't because it was only in towns and cities. So I'll need another example for this resource. I'm going to use, what we're looking at is a page from the 1910 US Census, which I brought up using the Ancestry.com Library Edition, which is free to access through Gwinnett County Public Library, by the way. And so I'm going to use this household under Andrew Kelly. This was taken in 1910 in Atlanta, Georgia. And so this house was at 87 Plum Street. So let's go ahead and bring up the fire insurance maps. Now that they are not a Gwinnett County Public Library database, but you can access them through the Sanborn collection on the Library of Congress website, and there's other places as well, but I'll be using this one. So you can just Google this, Sanborn fire insurance maps. And let's bring this up. And then within this collection, we can search by location. So Atlanta. Okay, and in our results we see that there's one that was taken in 1917, 1911, 1911, 1911. There's different volumes for 1911. And 1911 is probably as close as we're going to get, so let's start with volume 1 and see what we get. So Atlanta was pretty big even back then, so we need to narrow down and find Plum Street. So let's open up the images. Typically there's a street index at the very end of the image set. So let's go to the very last page. Okay, that's the back cover. This is the next to last page. So here's the index. And let's zoom in a bit. Okay, there's Plum Street, and it was 87, so it's probably in this range of odd numbers on page 48. So let's go there. Okay, that actually takes us to page 38 of the maps. So that means we need to go to image 58, I think. Okay, yes, here's page 48 of the maps. And this is a little bit hard to see, but here's Plum Street. And there's number 87 right there. So what this tells us, the letter D means that it was a dwelling. You can tell the general shape of the house, kind of long and narrow. The dashed lines indicate a porch, so it had kind of a wraparound front porch. And these small number ones indicate that it was a single-story structure. And there was also a small building in the back, maybe a stable or a shed of some sort. So this is just interesting because you can see what the surrounding houses and buildings look like, as well as other buildings. There was a library nearby. How about that? And another thing I like about this is that you can also pinpoint its location if you compare it to a modern day map. We can tell that Plum Street was bounded on the north by a West North Avenue, on the east by Lucky Street, and then there was a West Merritt's Avenue just below it to the south. So let's search for Plum Street today using Google Maps and see what it looks like. And I've already done that. So here it is. And it looks like there's just a remnant of it left. It's actually in the middle of the Georgia Tech campus. If we scroll down a little bit, here is North Avenue. There's Lucky Street. And there's Merritt's Avenue. So that means that 87 Plum Street was somewhere in this area. And as you can see, it's no longer houses. It's been replaced. So somewhere right in here. So this actually brings me to the next resource that I want to talk about, called Historic Aerials, which has photos from previous decades. So we can see hopefully what this area looked like several decades back, and maybe even see that house when it was still there. So let's take a look at that resource. To get to Historic Aerials, you can go to historicaerials.com. And this is another free resource. You can access it from anywhere. It's not a library database. And to get started, click on View Images. And if you have an address, you can type it in. But since 87 Plum Street is long gone, we can just type in a landmark nearby. So I'll just use Georgia Tech. Okay, there's the remnant of Plum Street we saw on the other map. And there's North Avenue, there's Lucky Street, and there's Merritt's Avenue. So remember that 87 Plum Street should have been right in this area. So on the left sidebar, you can click on aerials. And what this is it's aerial photos taken from an airplane during previous years. So for example, if I click on 2017, and here's 2007, here's 1978, 1968, you see that as a parking lot at that time. But if we go far enough back, here's 1960, you can actually see some of the houses that were originally there. So if you were to go back to the Sanborn fire insurance maps, you could actually pinpoint where 87 was located, but this gives you some idea. And it actually goes back a bit further because being in Atlanta, they took more photos. So hopefully you could get some sense of what it looked like and what its surroundings looked like at that time. Just adds, again, a bit more context. The other neat thing about this is that you can do a comparison. There's also an overlay feature, but if you click on compare and then do this side by side, you can do different years. and then you can use this slide bar to compare how it's changed over time. And besides just genealogy research, this is just fun to use. You can type in your home address and see how that area has changed over time, or any location. So it's really just a fun resource anyway, but it's definitely useful for genealogists. I want to mention that newspaper archives are a great resource for genealogists. They can provide clues about your ancestors, such as where they lived and what they did there and what they did for a living, as well as many other stories that you might not find anywhere else, not to mention obituaries. And there's several free newspaper archives, one of which is elephant.com. And as you see here, it includes over 4,000 newspaper titles. You can just search here. Another great free resource is the Library of Congress digitized newspapers. You can just Google this, Library of Congress newspapers, and then click on this link. And there will be an alphabetical list by state, and then within state newspaper publications. And you can also search here and filter it by date range. But by far the most complete archive of historical newspapers I found is newspapers.com, which is an Ancestry.com product. Unfortunately, we don't have access to newspapers.com through the library for free, so it is a subscription-based product. But I have found titles here that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. So my recommendation would be to start with the free databases first, see if you can find what you're looking for. If not, then maybe explore this as an option. Another easily overlooked resource, I think, are state archives. Here I have the Georgia Archives website pulled up, and just to show you, let me go to the Virtual Vault section. And here you can see several things of potential interest to a genealogist. For example, the Bible Records Microfilm Index. And this is just an index, so if you find something pertaining to your family, you'd probably have to visit the archives in person to see it on microfilm. But perhaps, for example, they would have a family Bible. It would contain things like birth and death records and marriage records. Here they have a church records microfilm index. Things like a colonial estate records, plats and warrants, colonial wills, military records like Civil War muster rolls, pension applications, county records, historical county maps, Georgia death certificates. And so this goes on, but you get the point. And if we go back to the home page, I want to point this out too. Vanishing Georgia is great. Right now it isn't working as I'm recording this, but it has, as it says, over 18,000 images of historical images of Georgia. So, for example, pretty much any town or city in Georgia where your ancestor may have lived, they'll have some historical images that you can take a look at. And again, that just kind of provides some context, I think, to your family history. In a sense, you can see some of the same sites that they saw however many years ago. The last thing I want to talk about quickly are local historical societies, which are often found at the county level. Just speaking from personal experience, these are a valuable source of information, whether it's through their archives or through members of the group and researchers. Often they can put you in touch with people who have more information or may have even known the family that you're researching. So don't overlook these. More often than not, they're happy to help. And they can really fill in the gaps and supplement your other research and kind of complete the picture. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has given you some new ideas and things to consider. And as always, if you have any questions or need any help, feel free to contact us at Gwinnett County Public Library. Thanks for watching.